Good morning. It's so cold here this morning. If I look like I'm sat forward like this, it's because I am, because my heater is under my desk and I'm warming my hands on my heater. But that aside, let's get on with the next 3 of the 12 universal laws that I'm going to talk about this week. So we did the first 3. Last week we did the next 3. Now we're going to move on to the next 3, and then next week we'll wrap it up by finishing off the 12. But the first one that we're going to talk about today is the law of compensation. So the law of compensation is actually an extension of the law of cause and effect that I've spoke about previously, and it basically just means that you will be compensated for whatever you put into the world. So if you're generous and kind and loving, and you put in, time into your relationships, and you put time into your friendships, and the law of compensation just basically means you're going to get that back. It's like you are compensated for the good stuff that you put out into the world. It doesn't just mean money. It can be anything. It can be friendships, it can be abundance, it can be love, it can be happiness, it can be literally anything. So if we perform a good deed as such, then we will get compensated because of the law of compensation. It follows that we will get compensated for that good deed. It's a lot like in last week's video, I spoke about when my friends had COVID, and I put care packets together and I dropped things off on people's doorsteps, and then the next week, unbeknownst to me, one of my beautiful friends decided to buy me flowers and just left them on my doorstep. That was compensation, if you like, for the fact that I had done a good deed, that I'd done something kind, that I'd been generous, and that I'd taken the care packages and looked out for my friends. That, it's the law of, like I said last week, it's the law of cause and effect, but it was also the law of compensation at work, because I was getting compensated for doing a good deed, for being kind, for being a good friend, and that came back to me. So it's almost like the opposite of karma, if you like. The what comes around goes around, the what goes around comes around. It's the same thing. We are compensated for the good things that we do in this world, but also we can be compensated by the law of compensation for the bad things that we do in this world. So with all of these laws, they don't just work for good, they work for bad as well. They can work for negative things as well as positive things. And I think that's why, you have to be careful, because these laws are always working. Whether you think you can manifest, whether you think you're using the law of attraction, whether you think you're using the law of divine oneness, whether you think you are using the law of compensation, the thing is, you are. Whether you know about it or not, every single one of us are using these laws in our daily lives, and it's a choice that we have to use them for good, to use them for things that we want, to use them for positive things, to use them in the right way to enhance our lives, or just blindly go about gossiping and bullying and being negative and picking things apart, and picking ourselves apart and looking at all the bad that's going on, and then you'll still be using the laws, but you'll be using them negatively. They're going to work, they're designed to work, and they're working in every single person's life, and it's our choice whether we use them to make our lives better, or whether we carry on using them, to be negative and to have the stuff that we don't want show up in our lives. So I think my best advice for using the law of compensation is that you basically get out of life what you put in, right? So if you bring your best self, the best version of you, to everything that you do, and you aim to be the best version of yourself in every single interaction that you have throughout your day, you are going to get the best back, because that's the law of compensation in action. So be generous, be kind, be gracious, accept all of that with open arms, and you will get that back with the law of compensation. Right, had to have a little sip of my drink then, because my hands, even though I've got my heater here, my hands were getting cold, so I want to warm them up in my mug. So the next one, this is the law of perpetual transmission of energy, and I can never say that right, so if I've said that wrong, I'm sorry. Please don't correct me in the comments, because I know I'm not saying it right. The law of perpetual transmission of energy. Tell you what, try saying that when you've had a few drinks. Anyway, this one is one of my absolute favorite laws, and it is about energy, right? It's all about energy, and it's when you're feeling stuck, it's knowing that you can change, because this perpetual movement of the energy. So I've talked about the importance of staying high vibe, of staying in a good vibration, of the law of vibration, right? We talked about that one. And this one kind of feeds into that. But life throws us curveballs, right? I also talked about that on last week's episode when I was talking about the law of attraction. We can be high vibe and we can aim to stay there, but life is life, and we are human and we have emotions, and we get thrown all kinds of curveballs in our life into our path as we are going through our day-to-day, just daily existence, being a soul in a physical body. And so if we get thrown a curveball, you can then start to feel stuck. But I think with this law, when you're looking at this law, you're looking at the fact that energy is always moving. Energy is always in constant flux, right? It's always, your attention goes where energy flows. You will have heard that saying before. And that basically is the gist of this law. That is your energy will go where your attention is. And so, who is the thinker of your thoughts? Are you the thinker of your thoughts? Are you consciously thinking your thoughts? And if you are, which you are because you're the one thinking them, you are exercising your power to use your thoughts and actually activate thoughts that serve you, as opposed to thoughts that don't, thoughts that are going to work against you. So that's what it means by, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to get it wrong because I can't say this, the perpetual transmission of energy. That's what this law means, right? That you can change your negative thoughts into positive ones by choosing, just by choosing that you are not going to think that negative thought anymore. You're breaking the pattern, you're interrupting the pattern. We talked about that in the law of correspondence. If you can catch those negative thoughts and you can break the pattern of them and change them into positive thoughts, then you are using this law, because you are changing your energy from a negative state to a more positive state. So this law, it basically means that you have the choice, because energy is ever flowing, energy is ever moving, and negative thoughts can always be changed into positive ones just by us using our thoughts for power. We are in control, right? And by this law, this is the superpower law. We're in control of our life. We're in control of our thoughts. We're in control of what goes on in here. And if we begin to mindfully, and I talk about being mindful a lot, if we give ourselves that space to, we have a negative thing happen, right? And instantly, normally what happens is the negative thing happens and we think of how that has made us feel in the past, and we attach feelings to that thing that just happened, and we attach emotions to that thing that just happened, and we react to the thing that just happened the way we've always reacted to it. We might get upset or sad or angry. But if you can use this law for good, right, use this law to your advantage, if you give yourself that grace, just that second to just stop, be mindful of what's happened and choose positive, choose differently, break the pattern. So Give yourself that second's grace before you react from past feelings, from past emotions, from past experiences. Use this law by giving yourself that grace, that second, to actually put the perpetual transmission of energy, the law of perpetual transmission of energy into practice, into flow, by choosing to react differently, by choosing to react in a more positive way and not get caught up in the old negative patterns. Because remember, with the law of correspondence, we are breaking those patterns. Choose again, choose positive, and this one can be your absolute superpower. And so the next law that we're going to look at, the last one for today, is the law of relativity. And this one is, it's a really good, I actually really love this one, because basically, picture this, right? Scenario. I'm going to paint a picture for you using the law of relativity. So basically, you just woke up. It's a lovely morning, the sun's shining, you're lying in bed, you're happily going, oh, it's a lovely day, isn't it nice? And then you suddenly realise that your alarm didn't go off. And you look at the clock and you are already late for work and you haven't even got out of bed. So you scramble. You get up really quick, you're in a rush now, it's all horrible, and you're stressed because you know that your boss is going to be annoyed with you because you're late for work. You go into your closet to get dressed, you put on your favourite white shirt and your black pants and you're ready to go. You go and make yourself a coffee because you haven't got time to get one from the barista down the road anymore. You make yourself a coffee, but then you end up spilling it down your shirt, so you've got to get changed. You're already late, everything's going horribly wrong. You haven't had time to drink your coffee, so you get changed quickly, put on something else, you get in the car. On the way past, you think, okay, I still need my coffee because I haven't had it, so you go down to your local cafe, you text in your order because you're a local at this cafe and you know what you're doing and they know what you have, so you text it in. But when you get there, Jim, the barista, who's normally there, isn't there this morning. He's called in sick, and Sally, the new barista, doesn't know what your order is. So instead of making you a cappuccino, she's made you a mochaccino, and you don't like them. And so not only have you got up late, been late for work, your boss is going to be annoyed with you, you've spilt stuff down your shirt, and you've got the wrong coffee. Everything has gone horribly wrong and your morning's fallen apart. That, right, may seem like a hugely negative situation, but the law of relativity says that Fred, who's the homeless man who sleeps on the bench, would love to change places with you and have that morning rather than his, because he doesn't get a warm, comfy bed to sleep in. He doesn't have an alarm clock. He doesn't have a job that allows him to buy the shirt, to make the coffee, to go to your barista shop, to your coffee shop, to get your barista to make you the cappuccino. He would happily have the mochaccino instead, because he doesn't have those luxuries in his life. So to him, that morning that you've just experienced that was negative and stressful and horrible, to him, that's plain heaven. That's luxury. That is living his absolute best life, because it's all relative. The law of relativity. There's a famous quote by Oprah Winfrey, and she said something like, if you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. But if you look at what you don't have, you'll never have enough. And that sums up this law to absolute perfection. If you look at what you have in your life and you're grateful for, you may have been late for work, but you've got a job. You were in a warm bed. You had the alarm clock or your iPhone or whatever it was going off to wake you up. You had the coffee. You had the money to go to see your famous barista and get your cappuccino. If you look at that, if you look at those things, if you look at your life with gratitude and grace and just go, oh my God, I am so lucky. I got to sleep in that warm bed last night. And yes, I'm late for work, but you know what? Who cares? Because look at what I've got. Look at how amazing my life is. I have a roof over my head. I have money coming in. I can buy the coffee. If you look at that, rather than it being just things you take for granted because you do them each and every day, suddenly life becomes magical. Because when you stop and you actually appreciate all that you have, you realize that you have everything. So the law of relativity actually reminds us that nothing is good, nothing is bad. It's all relative. It's all relative to us. Everything is neutral, but it's the attention and the attachments that we put on things that make them good or bad or positive or negative. It's not the actual thing that is happening to you. It is what you attach to it, the feelings and the thoughts that you give it that makes it a positive or a negative situation. It's our human perception, it's our judgment, it's our thoughts, it's our emotions. That is what makes something either good or bad, or positive or negative, not the thing. So using the law of relativity, try to view a bad situation with a different perspective. Try to look at your morning of like absolute chaos because you got up late and you spilt your coffee and you had to get changed. Try and view that as relative. Don't attach the stress to it. Don't attach the emotion to it. Try and take again that mindful pause. Take the pause and actually look at it with a different point of view using the law of relativity, because everything is relative. And no matter how bad it might seem in the moment, if you keep in mind that everything is relative, no matter how bad it might feel for you, there is always somebody in a worse situation. There is always somebody that has less than you. There is somebody out there. You might be having the worst time of your life, but there is someone out there who would think that what you are experiencing right now is the absolute height of bliss, because what they're experiencing is a million times worse, a million times worse. So keep that in mind as you go through any bad situation. Look for the bright side, look for the good, look for the gratitude, and change the negative into the positive by being aware that if you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. And if you look at what you don't have in life, you will never have enough. So those three, in a nutshell, actually tell us that we can be living our best lives. We just need to choose again. We just need to not attach emotions to things. And we have so much to be grateful for, so much to be grateful for. And I think these three encapsulate the fact that if we are mindful, which is something I talk about a lot here, if we can be mindful and not attach emotions and not attach thoughts and not attach feelings and not attach old experiences to things that happen to us, we can choose again. We can choose again, and we can choose to be more positive in the negative situations, and we can look for the good in the bad. I think that is really what these ones today teach us. So if you've got nothing else from this series that I've been doing on these 12 universal laws, just take that away, that there's always something good. There's always something to be grateful for. There's always something to be thankful for. And there is always somebody having a worse time than we are. So, yeah, they're the three I want to talk about this week. And I'm going to wrap up today's now. But I'll be back next week to wrap up these whole 12 to talk about the last three. And then, then you know all about the 12 universal laws. And it's not just the law of attraction. That is just the one puzzle piece, like I said last week. So that's it for this week. And I'll be back to wrap this whole entire thing up next week. So I will see you then. Bye.